Hey guys, John here from CONTRABIM, and ever since Archicad 24 was released, I've been seeing this feature project, the Merdeka 118, literally everywhere. It's all over the internet, it's all over social media, and it's right there whenever you launch the application. So I've been kind of thinking to myself, how would I model this in Archicad? And I thought I would do a video here on just that. So we'll go through, kind of conceptualize how we would build up this tower, as well as wrap this facade with all these different triangle faces. So should be fun, should be a bit of a challenge, and hopefully you can pick up a few tips and tricks along the way. So let's jump into it and we'll model the feature project for Archicad 24. All right, so whenever you fire up Archicad 24, this is the tower you are going to see on the launch screen. This is the Merdeka 118 tower. Officially, I believe it's 644 meters tall, although I've seen a few different variations on the number. 118 stories, almost 300,000 square meters. I'm not sure if that number right there includes the podium or if that's entirely in the tower or not. But regardless, it's a very large project. I think it's the second tallest building in the world upon completion, located in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And it's just a really interesting looking project. And as I mentioned, every time I'm looking at different things, either in real life or online, I'm always kind of thinking to myself, how would I model that in Archicad? So that's what I want to do in this video. Is we're going to go through, kind of set up a project, set up some stories. We're certainly not going to set up all 118. Nobody wants to watch us do that. But it would be fun to set up a few of the different tiers and then do some modeling to kind of get this general shape, because it is a very interesting facade design done here by the Fender Katselitis architects out of Australia. So, okay, I've done a little bit of work just trying to kind of conceptualize so I can wrap my own mind around how this facade goes together. I've found a few different pictures online. Obviously, this tower is not complete just yet, but I've kind of determined that I feel like this facade is broken up into pretty much normal triangles, meaning that they're, I think normal is the right term. I have to go back to my geometry class, but where I think the triangles are all kind of equal in their shapes, where you could draw a line right down the middle of them and it'd be equal on both sides. And so I've kind of mapped out here what I believe the facades actually look like, where, you can see how I've transferred over from this image here, the facade coming up that leads to the peak. There's going to be kind of some filling in triangles that you can notice here, like this section right here. You'll see that we can fill in where it actually is overlapped by the other side. There's this kind of the central spine that runs up the entire facade right to the spire, and there's going to be some triangles we'll need to fill in right here as well. There's kind of one of the feature, I would say feature faces of the building, which is this one right here, that kind of has these different triangles kind of connecting together. So what I'm trying to represent here with these different colors is I believe everything that is kind of in this lighter blue is going to be actually a vertical face for the most part. The spire might be kind of tilting a little bit towards the peak, but these are, I believe, are vertical faces. And then anything in blue is going to be kind of an angled part of the facade that's going to connect the four prominent different faces together. So I haven't modeled this before, so let's see how successful I can be as we go through this. But I think doing some of this kind of pre-planning work is really going to help me kind of conceptualize as we go through and start building up these facades. So you can also see here the different elevations. This is all in meters. So starting from 0, I think there's about 25 meters of podium, and then we're spacing out 75 meters to the different tiers where I believe all these triangles kind of tie together, getting us up to 475 really kind of at this line right here, another 25 to the top of this this kind of square section on top, and then from there almost another 150 meters into the spire to get us up to 644. So okay, I did find a little bit of a kind of a, I'll call this cheating a little bit in terms of figuring out how the The grid is set up. I found just by searching the tower on the Arab site, who did, I believe, the foundation and geotechnical work on the project. I did find this grid layout, which was really kind of useful. I've kind of rounded things to some different numbers here, where I think we're going to be right in the range of 8.5-meter grids in both directions. I think we're at about a 30-degree angle on the core shape here. We got essentially 8 mega columns, and we also have this kind of this belt or this ring beam that runs through the foundations here. So so with this, I think we can get pretty close in terms of the general shape and size of the tower. And these columns are going to be really useful as we start modeling the facade, and we're going to take those columns vertically all the way up. And so those will be a really nice reference for us as we start going through and building things up. So, okay, with that, let's go ahead and jump over here to the Archicad file that I have set up. First thing that I would like to do here is let's go into our stories, and we're just going to make some adjustments to the stories here. And our max height here, I believe we're at 644 meters. So for this last one here, we could just set this to 144, and I think that's going to put us right there. Okay, so that is our elevations. I'm going to just go ahead and hit OK. So now we have these. It's kind of nice to have these. I think these just kind of quick little references for us. There we go. And ground is at 0 meters. Okay. There we are. So now that we've got our stories in place, let's do a little work here on our grids. Now we have 9 bays in each direction at 8.5 meters. So if we take that 8.5 times 9, that gives us a radius of 76.5 on that belt that's going to take place really down on our pit level here. So I'm actually going to pick up a slab that I had set for that, or actually a wall, I should say. And we are going to just model this in. We're going to set this to our pit. We're going to link it to our ground story. We're going to set this to 0, and I'm going to put this down another -12 meters below that, because I believe it goes down 30. And so let's go ahead and model this in. So from here, if we're at 76.5, that means we want to be at what, 38.25 to the center. So there we go. And so now from center point to center point, we should be exactly 76.5. Let's just double check. Okay, perfect. So with that, let's go ahead. We'll take one of these grids. We're just going to pull it off to the side here. We're going to snap right there. And then we are going to take this and spread 8.5 meters. And we're just going to bring it all the way over. And there we go. We'll take all of these and we will just do kind of a rotate from the center. So with these grids, I'm not giving them any sort of naming or anything. We'll just kind of leave them blank. And okay, so with that, let's go ahead and, so we have a working point here that's actually going to be from this location right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this particular grid, and we're going 30 degrees here. And I'm just going to take this and kind of shift it on up so that it kind of, so that we're pretty close right here. We can always offset those. And I'm going to pull this in just a little bit. And okay, so that's going to be one of our lines. We'll adjust these different elevation markers here in a few minutes. So that's one of our controls on the project. I'm actually going to pull this out so that we're just a little bit outside. And so let's just take this one. We're going to mirror it in that direction. We're going to mirror it right down our center line here. And so now we are starting to come up with a kind of a nice shape here. Let's make a few quick adjustments here on our on our elevation. So I'm going to try to get this right on that grid. And then let's just offset it like, I don't know, 1 meter. Okay, so there's one. We'll kind of push this one directly over, rotate, offset 1 meter. Do the same over here. Rotate and offset. And finally, got one more of them here. Okay, so we are starting to look kind of like the right shape here. I think we, okay, so next step here, we actually have some of these grids that are coming right directly off this location. So we want to come, I believe, straight off. I don't know why that gave us an F there, but let's, where's my number? So let's just, I believe that's 90 degrees. We can check real quick by throwing a little dimension marker in there, or an angle. Okay, yeah. It didn't look quite like it, but definitely is. So, okay, I'm going to turn off the, not that end, but the other end. Okay, and then from here we are doing that 8.65, I think I said, was our spacing. So we're just going to pull this over, and that's going to be our spacing on this side. We'll take this and just kind of offset this, just, I don't know, 2 meters. And then let's just do some mirroring. I'm going to group those. We'll mirror right down the middle. Mirror again down the middle. And so that's our layout on those mega columns we were looking at there. And then finally here, I think what I'd like to do is let's just kind of create some grids for where we think our core is going to end up. And in this case, I'm actually going to pull this back over here just for a quick reference. I think our core is going to end up right about at that intersection, so we can kind of just set it at that. So we're going to take this one, we're going to push it on over, and we're going to snap it right there. And then, yeah, we can do some quick offsets here as well. So we'll just snap that one. Snap that one. May not be exactly perfect there, but probably pretty close. Snap it to there. Let's make it perfect. It's easy enough. So take this, mirror, mirror, and okay, there we go. We have all of our grids set up. Let's take a quick look at all of this here in 3D just to kind of check in to see where we're at. So, all right, there's kind of a spider web of different grids, but that's going to be really useful as we start working through this process. So one thing that we should probably point out here is with these grids, I'm going to select them all, and let's make sure that we have them extended to the right height vertically. So to project 0, we want to be at least 650, and minus 30 is probably good for our depth there. So, okay, got those taken care of real quick. And so now it's time to start doing some modeling here. So let's get our, maybe our matte foundation in. This is 4 meters thick. The top of this we want to be at, to home story, let's just set that to 0. So we're at 18. And then I'm just going to literally just click that, and we're going to add it in to the middle of our project. So we can cut a section just to make sure. Okay, so let's work on adding in some columns here. I have a specific column that I've set up. It's actually a complex profile. And what's nice about this is it's going to allow us to essentially place it on on the perimeter face here, and then based on that we can continue to modify the sizing as we go up the building. So let's just check this now. We have this one column. It's currently set as the pit, so it's minus 18 to begin with. We can set our top to 100 and we'll just kind of zero that out. So this particular column should go from the pit all the way to, in this case, that tier 3. So let's just check and make sure that we are in the right location on that. So okay, that should work. Typically, if I was modeling a project in detail, obviously I'd want to kind of break these down and I'd separate them out on each and every floor. But in this case, we'll just go through and do a quick and model them based on the overall anticipated size and where they're going to change profiles. So, okay, let's actually adjust this one. I think I saw that they were not necessarily 100% the same profile. But we're just kind of conceptualizing this anyways. So let's just get these in. All right, there we go. And let's also get our core in here as well. I think I have the shear wall up here on our first floor level. Let's pick this up. We can input it from here. That's fine. So we'll just take it from this point, snap it out to there, to there, to there, and down. So we'll get our core walls in. Let's get a kind of central one. Well, let's just kind of snap one through here for the moment. Okay, that's probably good enough. We could center it up. It's kind of strange how it's showing that cutting out, but I don't know if it actually is or not. Let's highlight these in 3D and see. So looks like that's all connecting together. So with our core walls, let's send them down to our pit as well. So we'll send them from there up to our tier 3. And you can see that that's now nice and adjusted. And there we are. We have our cores. We have our, we're calling the mega columns or the super columns. I know there are some additional steel columns because I know the structure is like a kind of a hybrid concrete steel structure where I think there's additional steel frames within here and steel beams on each deck. But we won't worry about all of that right now. It's more of just like a kind of a massing model exercise we're going through. So, okay, let's work on these columns a little more. So now that we have these in, let's do another lift of them. And we're going to take them from our pit level all the way up to our tier 3. So let's, I'm just copying them, going to tier 3. Let's paste. And we'll go to pick up our column settings here, and yep, that's it. So let's just check, assign that to tier 3. We'll take it up to tier 6. And so with these, let's just make a slight adjustment to our sizing. So as with any building, I'm sure these columns are probably being reduced a little bit in size as we move up the building. So we can go to 2.5 meters. So they're still huge columns by 3. And we can kind of switch these up. Maybe we'll go keep them 3.5 by 2.5. So it doesn't really matter that much once again. Okay, so copying these, going to tier 6, pasting. Tier 6 right now, we're currently sending these all the way up to the roof, which we can leave and kind of see how that's going to poke through later. So we'll reduce the size on these once again. Okay, and with that, let's check it out, see where we're at. Okay, so that gives us kind of an idea of the overall height of our structure here. Just like we did with columns, let's do the same thing with our core walls. So we'll just grab all of these. I'm going to group them. Copy. We'll jump to tier 3. Paste. Let's check our settings. So we want to start from tier 3, we're going to tier 6. We can maybe reduce these a little bit in thickness. Copy to tier 6. Reduce in thickness again. And I think that's taken us all the way up to our high point. Okay, so let's all right, let's add in a few additional decks here, just so we have some nice kind of reference planes when working here in elevation for our facade. So let's go to our ground level. We can just put a bit of a cap on here with our pit as our reference. So let's just show as a trace reference. We'll just click there. Did we get one in? Doesn't look like it, like that input. Let's try that again. No. Let's try this in 3D. So it looks like it'll let us put that half version in. Let's just pull out the other half. We're right on, in this case, center of wall. So we can, of course, go through and offset this. But that's probably okay for the moment. Let's just leave that. And what I really want to do is start working on our upper tiers here a little bit. So we're turning off our trace. Let's get some of these decks in. And I don't know for sure exactly where these edges are going to be finalized as, but as we go through and start adding in our facade, we'll figure out where we need to offset the edges of the decks here. So I actually believe that there's maybe a little bit of a carving out going on up on this side. So let's add in just a little bit of a notch. We'll just take this back in the Y direction, -1 foot. And I believe that we have a bit of a notch out here where there's, I think, some elevator shafts or something going on the front there. So let's take this. We'll just simply copy and paste. So now we'll have some nice references here on each of our different tiers. Okay, up to tier 8. And then our roof. This roof, I believe we're going to kind of chop this down a little bit. So let's just kind of split it in a few locations along our grids, and then we can adjust these later on. Split it there. Okay. So how are we looking now? Okay, starting to get a little bit more scale and reference in here. So yeah, up on this top level, we may need to do something with that shear wall to kind of bring it all together, but we'll address that when we get up there. All right, so we have our, with that, we have our kind of the base of our structure here. Of course, we could go through and we could work on adding additional decks in, but I don't want to overcomplicate the structure at the moment. But of course, when we get to that point, say if we want to split these and just elevate them, if we got, let's see, 75, so if we go 3 meters per deck, how many would that give us in this case? So let's just check and see. So yeah, it would give us 25 stories in each of these. So we take it up to that point, and just like that, we can start adding additional decks in, but we can always go back and do that at the end. So I'm not going to worry about that right now because that's just going to create more detail than what we need. So, okay, next up, let's work on our facade. Okay, so now that we got our basic structure in there for kind of our target tiered decks, let's go ahead and work on the facade, because that's probably the most complicated part of this entire project, but it's also one of the most interesting features that we have to add in. So I'm going to be doing this facade primarily with a morph to begin with, because I want a lot of flexibility and I don't want to have to work with the actual design tools. I just want to kind of get the massing down. So using a morph is really easy for that purpose. So let's actually start here with our, we'll start with our northwest elevation. So I'm going to just go ahead and open this up. There we can see we have our columns going all the way up. And what I'd like to do is, let's take a quick look here once again at our facade geometry. Now, with the facades here, so on like the northwest side of this, it's really going to be this face here, but just kind of flipped around. So if we flip it in this direction, this is really going to be the type of geometry that we're doing on this particular face. And what I'd like to do is really just kind of start with some triangles here that I think are going to give us a nice shape, because I think if we approach this by doing each different triangle with a morph, and we can just copy it around and offset it so it's the right size to span the different tiers, then I think it's going to make our lives a lot easier with how we can start placing this in, and we can adjust it around and shift it as needed. So I think the biggest challenge is probably going to be where this facade matches up with this version of it over here, specifically right on this line. And so that's where we'll probably have to play around with it a little bit to get to match up. So, okay, let's go ahead and start working on adding this in. And I'm actually going to pull up this on my other screen so I kind of have it as a quick reference. So, okay, I think what I want to do is, first off, I just want to get the right angle going. So to do that, I'm just going to start with some basic lines here. And what I'm kind of thinking I want is probably going like in the range of maybe 15 degrees on our triangles. And so let's just start with that and kind of see how close we can get it here. I'm going to bring this back just 7.5 so we can get that nice and centered. And with that, let's just start working on a single morph here. So I'm just going to take this straight down. Probably need a guideline for that particular case there. And so let's just get, oh, I screwed that up. Okay, redoing this. So let's just get a basic triangle in here so that we can start working with it. So actually, if I reference the kind of sketch that I did here, we'll actually want to start with a big triangle that's spanning 2 tiers, and then we have a small one up here. So I can take this small one, and the way that I drew this in was actually not even in the right tier. So we're going to start this from our level up above. So we're going to start this entire thing from tier 2. And now that we have the right angle on this, then we can easily just kind of push and pull this. So we can push this all the way up, and we should be able to snap, if we're good, directly on here. Sometimes I've noticed you have to go a little bit further and then pull it back, and you can actually get that to snap 100%. So, okay, so that would be one kind of triangle of our particular face here. And I think in this case, we're actually probably pretty close. It's probably something we're going to have to adjust a little bit to try to find the right location of where these want to hit. But with that, we can just simply start like taking this. We can, oh, well, I was trying to mirror that, but let's just take this. We're going to copy one over. We can take this point, rotate it around, and if we do this right, we can get these to snap together pretty easily. So let's take this one here. I'm going to push it over, and then we're going to offset this side all the way up. So, okay. And now that we have this, we can really just start kind of taking this, bringing it all the way through our facade. And then at the end, we can take this and kind of adjust left and right as needed. So, okay, so let's take this one. We're going to just rotate a copy, snap it in there, and you can see we're moving right up the building. So, get that one there. I'm looking at my reference here on my other screen, just so I'm trying to get this right on with our preferred or anticipated geometry. So I'm taking this all the way up, and then at the top here, so just to kind of show you where we're at, we've done pretty much all of these right here, and we need to put this little cap on the top. So to do that, let's just drop in a guideline, and then we'll kind of freeform this. It definitely, if we look at this little angle right here, you can see that it's going to be crossing over through right somewhere through here. So let's just try to get this close. Take this up. Actually, probably be good to just take it from this direction. So probably something right in, yeah, it could be like that. We can always go back and adjust this. So, okay, there we go. Let's check this out. So we're starting to get this through. I am liking the shape on it right now. I think that 15 degrees is probably a pretty close angle. If we kind of take a look at this, step back, look perpendicular to the surface, that probably feels pretty close. We may want to extend this up just a little bit. We can do that directly here. And I think in retrospect here, I think I want to pull at least these outer columns down. So let's just take these, we're going to offset them down. And then these we probably are going to do the same with. And we might just add some new columns up there on top. So we'll have to address that as we get there. So, okay, we are looking pretty decent. Let's do the other facade because I think that's really where we'll start learning about how these two are going to fit together. And so where I'm going to start here is let's just actually take one of those morphs that we had modeled in, and we're just going to flip it around. And so we have the same exact size, and let's see how it's going to look on this particular elevation. So let's open with current view. Okay, there we can see our the same exact shape of triangle. Once again, I'm going to give myself just a quick little reference here. So that will essentially be in the middle. We need to do one on the left. We have one that's going to be notched a little bit on the other side. But that will be our start. And then we have kind of the smaller triangles up top. So let's take this. We'll start by just shifting it over. We can, I think if we rotate a copy right from this intersection, does that place it in the right spot? Okay, that does. We can take this, we'll copy it over, and then looks like we need to either shift all of this, or it feels like we're a little bit off perhaps on our placement of where this is going to sit. So that's one thing we're going to have to play around with a little bit to try to find the right location for where all of this hits. But this one down here on the end, we can just take a corner, chop it. Oh, maybe it doesn't want to let me do that. Let's see. Let's try just adding a point and then pulling this back. Okay. So let's continue on. So this one's coming up here. This one's coming up here. We're going to have a smaller one on this particular size, or on this location, so we will do an offset to that level. We can take this and just rotate around. And I think we're getting pretty close here. That one should go to the top. This one here, we're going to have to do a little bit of slicing on it, because I believe this one is actually going to be a continuation of that line. So we'll take this, drop this in, clip the corner, and then we're going to have to kind of see how all this fits together. Did I do that last one right? I think I did. Well, we'll have to see how this all plays out. So one thing I'm going to do at this point is I want to come through here and I'm just going to group everything so I can move it easily without having to worry about moving just one part of it. So let's group. Oh, it still doesn't want to let me. We'll group it here in 3D. Okay. Let's grab this side. Let's grab all of our morphs. Isolate. Did I get them all? I think so. Okay, so now that we've got these grouped, we can see that there's quite a bit of an overhang here. And I think that's really the part that we need to kind of figure out where the best location is to have these kind of intersecting each other at an ideal point. So in order to do that, I think I'd like to just look at this maybe at like one of the tier crossings. And we can see here that we have a little bit of like, right now with these morphs turned on, let me just show you the settings. We have this set so that we're just looking at the floor plan range, so not the absolute display limit. So we are just cutting it to our floor plan. And by doing so, we get these little previews here. And so we can take this, and I think if we bring this back, let's just kind of see how that hits when we take these and adjust them. So I actually want to trying to see where that point is on this one. I think it's going to be right there. I think it actually gives us like a little bit of a notch mark. So let's pull these back and see if those indeed are where these will intersect. A little bit tough to tell here in 2D, but let's pull this up in 3D and see if that was a correct assumption. So it's actually looking pretty good. So if we look at that there, we'll know if it's right on if it actually gives us a point to snap to, which seems like it's giving us that, I guess, is the halfway point between this point and that point, as well as this point and that point. So that seems like a pretty logical way to match these up, I would say, is those halfway points. So that's actually probably what we were working with in the other view, which actually seems like that's going to work, I think, pretty well. We can see here on the back side, we're actually over from our center line. So that's something that we'll probably want to play with and adjust. That's going to be a little easier to adjust, though, I'd say, once we actually have the other side in. But right now I'm actually kind of liking this. So I think one thing we could do is let's go through and just try to fill in a few of these. And it's actually interesting here. I want to kind of see how it's going to hit in the front here as well. It seems like we got some space here on the front end that we may have to cut back. So one thing that will probably help us with this conceptualization here is just kind of understanding how the placement of this, because we can move all of this now a little bit in different directions. And if we needed to shift it in one way or another, I think we can do that probably pretty easily. It may take this point and kind of move it off of the deck and bring it higher. Or actually it may not. So, but in order to get this really working, let's do a few other things to try to figure out what else we need to do on this. So I think at the moment, let's do a quick just kind of preview here by mirroring down the center. And I want to see how we're hitting along those lines in the back. So, so yeah, we can certainly take this point and cut it down. If we took this whole face though, and we started shifting it forward in this direction, just as an example, like if we took this, moved it, say 2 meters, and I think if we take this one, because now we have a little, quite a bit of an overlap there. If we took this and moved it the same 2 meters, let's see what that gives us. What does that do for us? Does it keep these faces in line? It looks like it does. It did absolutely move that intersection point above that central line, but that might be okay. It definitely pulled this out a little bit further to the front, but I think that's what I wanted anyway. And it's going to, I think, be a little better here in the back. So let's actually go with that. So we're going to delete those other sides. And just to kind of test this a little bit, let's do a little filling in of these points here. So if we go from here to here, snap to those intersections, and then back down, we can kind of see how this is starting to tie together. So we should be able to do the same thing from this side. So we're going up. We want to hit that intersection point. Okay. So let's just take one face of this up. Okay, so now that we got the facade on, it's time to pretty much cap this thing off by adding in the spire. That's going to take us from our level 500 meters here, all the way up to 644 at the tallest point of the building. So in order to work on this, let's start with just taking a look here at our north elevation. So yeah, we're, just to reiterate, we're at 500, trying to get up to that 644 point. And so we have this nice kind of center line that we can work off of. And what I think I'd like to do is just, we're going to kind of start, let's actually pull up just a quick reference here. So this is the spire that we're going after. It's kind of thicker at the bottom, and then it gets thinner as it goes up. Let's see, that's a pretty good, well, decent perspective from the backside. But to me, it looks like there's kind of like a triangle base, and then there's kind of a secondary triangles, and it kind of gets thicker and thinner at the same time as it goes up. So I think I have an idea of how we can model this with a morph that should make it somewhat easy to get that geometry. But let's start playing around with it and see if we can get this to work. So okay, so here we have our kind of our center tower. Let's just start by kind of getting in some of these central elements. I actually want to give myself just a little bit of a guideline all the way up here to the top, so I can kind of have like a reference of what we're going for in terms of thickness. It might be a little thick here at the bottom. Let's kind of thin that out a little bit. That'll be kind of the overall thickness at the top. And okay, so let's go with that for the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of just start with some basic points here, some triangles, and I think I actually want to probably throw out this maybe a few little guidelines here, and let's just kind of offset this from the center, just like maybe, I don't know, 0.25 meters. We'll go back in the other direction, 0.5, and so now we kind of have some little reference planes to play with. So let's just keep kind of going up. I think I want to make those triangles essentially mirror, well, now that I'm thinking about this, what happens when we take the same angle of this one, mirror it up, and then just kind of trim it at each step? How is this going to play out? Overall, not so bad to start. Let's keep going with this. Trim it. And let's do one more to bring it back. And then from this point, we're just going straight to the top. So overall, I think that's probably going to work okay for us. So with that, I'm going to group these. We are going to mirror this right along the center. There we are. And then I'm going to start building this up with some morphs. So I'm actually going to do this in individual pieces here because I think it's going to make it a lot easier to make some of these geometry adjustments later. So we're just going to go through and just kind of snap these around. Okay, so there we are. Let's take a look at this in 3D because that's probably located off the building right now. So we're just going to grab all of these little pieces and let's just kind of snap it center point to center point. Okay, there we are. And I'm going to just give it a bit of a rotation here. So going up to the top, let's rotate just like half a degree. And so we'll be tapering it a little bit in this direction. Let's go to the very top and we'll do a mirror along this axis. And then I'm going to offset it from the top here. We'll go 1 full meter. And I think that's not bad. I'd say that's a pretty good starting point. So now that we have that, I'm going to grab essentially all of these up top. Wish I had grouped those and done that all in one move, but let's hit F5 so we can just kind of bring this a little closer to our working point. So, all right, next up, we need to give this a little bit more depth going on. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Looking at this picture now, I want to probably rotate this another half a degree. And we'll just make this slightly thicker. So 0.5. And then once again, I'm going to group those for the moment. We are going to mirror it. And then we'll push it over. Not one, yeah, 1 meter should be good. Okay, so I'm feeling a little more comfortable with that. Okay, now let's start filling in the sides here. So we're going up, over, down, and across. And that's good that that came in solid. So with this, what I want to do is I actually want to start kind of offsetting in this direction too. So we're going to go a full 1 meter here. And you can probably see what I'm going to be doing as we move up this is we're going to be doing a lot of just these little pieces and mirroring. So okay, so there we are. We have our spire. Let's bring back everything else. And yeah, that's looking good. So let's check it out in our elevations. So now we can actually just get rid of all that line work. So we'll do a marquee, lines, remove. And so now I'd say we're looking pretty good on this thing. We can certainly take all this, isolate it. We can just union them. And there we go. So there's our spire. So at this point, we've pretty much got this working. There's certainly more things we could go through and add. We can do all of the decks. We can go through and give these just a little bit more detail because that's probably one thing I'll do here and follow up is we can go through, start offsetting these, maybe just 1 meter in each direction, and we can start changing the colors on these. So I got some ideas of what I would like to do with this so that we can do some cool visualizations with it later. But for right now, I'd say we're at a good stopping point. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed watching this video. I know some of it has been sped up, but that's to make it not super long and to yeah, just kind of plow through the stuff that's a little bit tedious. So there we go. We got it in. We can look at it from some different perspectives. Always nice to check it out to see kind of how it's looking from each different direction. So we can change our settings here. We can check it out on a white model. White model there. Yeah. So yeah, there we go. Okay, thanks for watching. If you have any questions on any of these different techniques, then yeah, just leave it in the comment section. And yeah, we'll take this and kind of work on it a little bit more, doing some other types of videos and detailing. So there we are.